Fans have waited all season long to see Darryn Peterson close out a game for Kansas, and the freshman phenom fully delivered on Big Monday.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. I am your host and longtime college basketball podcaster, Andy Patton. I want to thank all of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. And of course, give a special shout out to those everyday listeners and those of you hanging out with us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Folks, stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And it was a great Big Monday as always. Yesterday, we saw what we didn't think was going to be an exciting game between North Carolina and Syracuse that ended up not looking like an exciting game until it suddenly got a little bit interesting at the end. We'll talk about what happened between those ACC opponents. And then, of course, we'll talk about the comeback by Kansas, Darryn Peterson, what he was able to do in this game. We'll close out the show with some Tuesday game previews, including 4 teams all looking to stay undefeated in conference play. That's Duke, UConn, St. Louis, and Miami, Ohio. We'll see if Miami, Ohio, not only looking to stay undefeated in their league, but undefeated on the season. We'll get to all those games later in the show, but we got to start with the second game of Big Monday. While North Carolina Syracuse delivered a little bit more than we thought it would, we expected all along that this game between two top-ranked opponents was going to be the big one for us on Monday night, and wow, was it ever. Kansas pulls off a victory, a road win over Texas Tech, their 6th straight win, and the Jayhawks only led this game for about 37%. Texas Tech led for over half of this basketball game, and in fact, Tech, who had a lead as big as 10 points at some points in this game, they were up 61-56, 5-point lead with 2 minutes and 13 seconds to go. And then here's what happened. Flory Bidunga dunked the ball right after that. It was a 61-58 lead for Kansas. About 45 seconds later, with a minute and a half to go, JT Toppin inbounded the ball to Lawan Watts. Lawan Watts wasn't ready for it. It bounced off his hands, went out of bounds. Kansas gets the ball back under their own basket, get the ball on a great flare screen to Darryn Peterson, who drills a contested 3 over JT Toppin. After that, 44 seconds to go in this game after JT Toppin misses a couple of shots for Texas Tech. Kansas has the ball back. Darryn Peterson gets an isolation with Donovan Atwell on him and just takes him off the dribble, hits a pull-up 3. It looked like the lay-in for Darryn Peterson, drills the 3. So now it had gone from a 3-point deficit to a 3-point lead for Kansas in a matter of about 40 seconds because of Darryn Peterson. Trey White then had a horrific turnover for Kansas after they got the ball back. Jalen Petty got a steal. They had a chance to tie this basketball game. Couple of turnovers called as Kansas used the fouls they had to give. Atwell misses a 3 with 6 seconds to go. White gets the rebound, turns it over again. Atwell throws up a desperation 3, does not go in. Kansas escapes with a 3-point win here, but the crazy story was what Darryn Peterson was able to do because, look, Peterson finished this game with 19 points. It's not like he had a bad night, but he really didn't do anything in the second half until that point in the game. It's almost like he was just waiting and biding his time. He was really inactive in the second half. He had 2 free throws very early in the half, and he attacked JT Toppin in transition, which was a really smart play. Toppin had 2 fouls in the first half, sat a lot of the first half because of that foul trouble, and then like 2-3 minutes or so into the second half, Peterson in transition gets Toppin to foul him for his 3rd foul, makes the 2 free throws, but after that, he didn't score again. That was like the 16.5-minute mark. He didn't score again until he hit that 3 with a minute 20 to go. He only took 3 shots or 2 shots, I think, in that entire rest of that half. Was just kind of quiet, biding his time, distributing the ball. Fran Fraschilla was losing his mind on the broadcast. Like, they need to get DP more involved. They need to get Peterson more involved. It's not that he was sitting. We're used to him not being involved in the second half because he's not been playing in the second half of games, but he played in this game. He was on the floor a little bit of a decoy. Really, they just kind of dumped the ball to Bidunga a lot of the time because he was having a great game. Melvin Council, nice game as well. But Peterson was just waited until he could get into killer mode and then drilled those 2 threes like it was nothing. That's what you want to see out of a guy that's going to go in the top 3 of the NBA draft. Again, 19 points for him. He was 2 of 7 on his 2-point attempts, 3 of 7 from 3, 6 of 8 from the line. Like, again, not a super efficient night. The stats aren't really going to do his line justice, but man, oh man, when they needed a bucket, Peterson made it look as easy as he possibly could have. And again, that's what you want out of a player that is widely considered one of the most, if not the most talented player in college basketball, even if availability has been an obvious concern for him. Speaking of availability, it is really, really heavy caveat about this win for Kansas and this loss for Texas Tech that Christian Anderson, Texas Tech's starting point guard and the most utilized player in college basketball. He averages 39 minutes a game. Folks, there are only 40 minutes in a basketball game at the collegiate level. He plays dang near every single minute, and he did not play in this game. Apparently, he was fine, or at least participating in the shoot-around that morning, so there wasn't really any indication he was not going to play until he did not come out for warm-ups before the game, and he was dealing with an illness. He was at the game. They reevaluated him at halftime. He came out of the halftime locker room and took some shots with the team, and we thought we were going to have our Willis Reed moment. It seemed like Christian Anderson was going to come in the second half of this basketball game and potentially turn things around for Texas Tech, who was down 3 at halftime, but then took a 10-point lead in the second half of this game. Anderson ended up not playing in this game, and it was a hard deal for Texas Tech to be able to find a way to fight through not having, again, one of the best point guards in college basketball on the floor in this game. And he's 39 minutes per game. Like we said, he's second in the NCAA, one of the most high usage players in all of college basketball. And that contributed to this team having 12 assists and 9 turnovers. Anderson's typically one of the best facilitators in the sport and really good at taking care of the basketball for a sophomore. But really the main issue that this caused for Texas Tech is that because they didn't have a guard who could really break the defense down with dribble penetration, Kansas dared Texas Tech to shoot. They said, we're going to shut down Toppin because we can throw everything at JT Toppin. Because when you throw everything at JT Toppin, when Anderson's on the floor, he's going to do what he did against Duke and what he's done against a lot of teams this year and just go nuclear as a scorer. But since he wasn't on the floor, Kansas they had Bidunga on Toppin, but they sent doubles every time they could and dared Lawan Watts to shoot, dared Donovan Atwell to shoot, dared Tyree Bryan to shoot. And Texas Tech went through really strange waves in this game offensively. They began the game 6 of 25 from 3, 6 of 25 from the 3-point line. And then they got scorching hot in the second half, made 6 of their next 8 3-point attempts. That's when they took their lead by, again, as many as 10 points. And then they closed the game 0 of 7 from 3. So finishing 12 of 40, which is not good, but they had this heater of a stretch in the middle of the game. But other than that, we're just 6 of 33 again, or 6 of 32, excuse me. Atwell was just 4 of 13. Petty was 3 of 9. Lawan Watts was 2 of 7. But again, not only was the 3-point shooting not there, but because Kansas was able to just absolutely fixate on Toppin, he had a really rough night. Just 10 points for JT, 5 of 18 shooting for Toppin. He had 6 boards and 5 steals, but just could not get anything going offensively in this game. A major shout out to Bill Self and the coaching strategy, making that adjustment on the fly, seemingly not knowing ahead of time that Anderson was not going to play. And obviously the talent of Bryson Tiller and Flory Bidunga, who were just dynamic on Toppin in this game all the way throughout. Really big win for Kansas. They've now won 6 games in a row. They're up to 17-5 overall. They're 7-2 in the Big 12. Their last 2 wins were BYU and Texas Tech. Major hot streak right now for Bill Self's team. Next up, they host Utah. That should be a very winnable game for the Jayhawks. And then it's the really big one when they bring Tommy Lloyd and the Arizona Wildcats to town. Doesn't get much easier after that as they go on the road to Ames to take on Iowa State. Meanwhile, for Texas Tech, this is their second straight loss after losing that game to Central Florida on Saturday. They dropped to 16-6, 6-3 in the Big 12. Obviously, you got to hope that Anderson is going to be okay. Again, it sounds like it was just an illness. Sounds like he was very close to returning in this game, so you'd expect that he'll play in their next game in Morgantown against West Virginia. After that, they host Colorado. So 2 games they should use to get right before they then have to play Tommy Lloyd in Arizona, that one being on the road at the McHale Center against the Wildcats. But we're going to move on. We're going to talk about this North Carolina game because North Carolina had a 32-point lead. 32-point lead with 10 minutes to go. There is no way that Syracuse could have possibly covered what was an 11.5-point spread, except that's not exactly what happened. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, folks, this is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And one of the cool things that came out of this Texas Tech-Kansas game was that Jazz Henderson, who is Texas Tech's very seldom used backup/third string point guard. He was high school teammates with JT Toppin. He's a freshman this year. Coming into this game, he had played 16 career minutes in just 5 games for Grant McCaslin's team. But he got some run because of the absence of Christian Anderson. And he had a big 3 in the second half of this game and ended up giving Tech an 8-point lead. Just really fun to see guys like that who don't get very much action, who are still, biding their time, who are performing in practice, who, when the time is called, when they get that opportunity to actually step onto the floor, they go out and deliver. The crowd went crazy. It was a huge momentum swing for the Red Raiders. Obviously did not end in them winning the basketball game, but very cool for Henderson and his family to see this moment. And these are the things that remind us what it really takes for a program to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court. It's dialing in every detail. It's giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that never quit attitude. And Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel, but what it takes to get there, that's what makes it count. And there's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, folks, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On College Basketball your first listen or your first watch of the day. And thank you all for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And folks, you already live your team every day, so now you can take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On College Basketball with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedoncollegebasketball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Well, Big Monday, again, our big game was the nightcap between Kansas and Texas Tech. But boy, we got some fireworks, unexpected fireworks between North Carolina and Syracuse. The first game, North Carolina ended up winning this game 87-77. And if you're a box score watcher, you're going to see that Syracuse, was an 11.5-point underdog. They lose by just 10 points. They outscored North Carolina in the second half. And it's going to look like, oh, okay, maybe not the most impressive performance for Carolina, but hey, they got it done. That's not really how this game went. It was decently close in the first half. At times, I think North Carolina jumped out to a 9-2 lead and never relinquished the lead from that point forward. Cuse kind of kept it within single digits for a while. North Carolina went on a nice run to close out the half and then absolutely blitzed Syracuse in the second half. I think at one point it was like a 23-8 run, built up a huge lead. We're coasting. There was no reason to think this game was really even still going to keep happening. At the 9:38 mark in the second half, North Carolina was up 72-40. 72-40, a 32-point lead with less than 10 minutes to go. That's the fourth quarter of this basketball game, and it was a 32-point lead. And then fast forward 8 minutes and 56 seconds of game time later, with 42 seconds remaining in this game, Cuse was only down 83-77. It was a 2-possession game because Syracuse went on a ridiculous 37-11 run over a 9-minute stretch of basketball. Everything North Carolina fans have feared about this team, all of the consternation, all of the panic about Hubert Davis, about the defense on the perimeter, about the inability to score offensively without the bigs, all of it showed up in this 9-minute stretch for the Tar Heels. Syracuse made 7 straight at one point in the first half, and Hubert Davis going into the halftime locker room was like, hey, we cannot let that happen. We cannot let this team continue to get easy looks without us, putting up much of a fight. During this 37-11 run, there was a point where they made 11 out of 12 from the field, just could not miss. Some of them were tough shots. I will give Davis a little bit of credit in that regard. Like sometimes Syracuse was just throwing up shots that ended up falling, but you can't give up a 20. You can't get beat by 26 over a 9-minute stretch of a game and expect to win. They still won. Shout out to them for that. But man, oh man, did this thing get really, really ugly in this one. Caleb Wilson and Henry Vesar are, of course, who won this game for North Carolina. Not a shock. That is who often wins the game for North Carolina. Wilson finished with 22 points and 9 rebounds. He had a steal. He did have 4 turnovers, and he wasn't particularly effective, 6 of 14 from the field. He did go 10 of 13 from the free throw line. He remains very good at drawing contact and getting to the stripe. He had some really great plays. If you haven't seen the highlight of his one steal in this game, it was epic. He played really good defense coming off a screen, tipped the ball away, was recovered by a Syracuse player who tried to make the same pass to the same player, and Wilson reached his long arm out. I don't know how he snared this thing with one hand, started a fast break from there. He had an incredibly ridiculous acrobatic one-handed lay-in in transition later in the first half as well. You can see the appeal. You can see the highlights with Caleb Wilson. And again, 22 and 9 is certainly a good line, just not his most efficient game. Vesar, however, was very efficient in this game, 7 of 11 from the field, finished with 17 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and a pair of steals. The two bigs had not quite half of North Carolina's points. They had 39 of their 87, in part because UNC actually got some bench production, which has been an issue for this team at times. Jonathan Powell had 12 points on the bench, 3 of 4 from 3. Luka Bogovac, had 10 points. He shot 4 of 6, including drilling his 1 3-point attempt. 3 straight games for Bogovac where he has scored in double figures. Really nice to see him get going for the Tar Heels. I think he's a big X factor for this team that needs perimeter scoring. They need some size. They also need some of that experience and some bench scoring if he's going to continue to come off the bench and deliver. I thought we saw some good things from Jaron Stevenson in this game as well. UNC, they got the rest of the week to recover. One of the storylines we were kind of looking for is, are we going to see this Carolina team potentially be looking ahead to the Duke game on Saturday? And if so, would that result in maybe a not as comfortable win against Syracuse? And it's hard to say that that's what happened here. Like, I don't think that the players randomly in the middle of the game we're starting to look ahead. Like, you'd see you'd probably see a bad start to a game if that were the case. But certainly some things that Hubert Davis and that Carolina staff are going to be working on and emphasizing heavily, because if you play like that in a 9-minute stretch against Duke, I guarantee you that you are not going to win that basketball game. We'll see if they can right the ship. Again, they got Duke next. Then they're at Miami, so a couple of tough games for them before they return home and host Pitt. And then they got another rivalry game taking on NC State. Meanwhile, for Cuse, they dropped to 4-6 in the ACC. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. Just been a really rough season for Red Autry. I know our guy, Jackson Holzer at Locked On Syracuse, has been banging the drum for Syracuse to find a new coach. It sounds like that's going to be the case at the end of this year. Nice to see his team have some fight left in them and come back and win this game. Donnie Freeman was great, 23 points, 8 boards, 8 of 14 shooting. If you haven't seen his highlight to end the first half, just a ridiculous banked 3 going into the locker room. That was a fun shot that he made. Good performance from him. Rest of the team, 7 assists and 10 turnovers. This is a team that brought in one of the best passers in college basketball last year. Their transfer from Georgia Tech, Nate George, and he has not been good this year. Struggled in this game as well, even against the Carolina defense that hasn't been great against the perimeter. Next up for them, they're on the road at Virginia. Then they host Cal and SMU before they get their trip to the Cameron Indoor to take on Duke. Speaking of Duke, we got some ACC previews here before we get to our final segment. Boston College is at Duke tonight, 7 Eastern time on the ACC network. FanDuel favors Duke by 26.5 points. Look, UNC didn't overlook Duke, even though that game got kind of ugly down the stretch. Is Duke going to overlook Boston College? No. And look, honestly, even if they do, let's be real. Even if they do, there's no reason that Duke should not absolutely smack BC in this game at home. 26.5 is a ridiculous line for a conference game at the power conference level. But honestly, I think Duke's going to cover. I think they're going to just blow this BC team out. And then both these teams can get these games out of the way and get ready to focus the rest of the week on that rivalry on Saturday. NC State is at SMU tonight as well, 9 Eastern time on ESPN2. FanDuel favoring the Wolfpack by 2.5. They've won 4 in a row. They're up to 7-2 in conference play. They're also 5-0 in road games in the ACC this year. Now, their best win out of that group is Clemson, which is a pretty good win. The rest of them are kind of bottom half teams in the ACC, but still notable that Will Wade has not lost a road game in conference play as he heads out to Dallas to take on the Stangs here. They're coming off a road loss to Louisville. They're 4-4 in the ACC. Their wins are North Carolina. That's their best win by far. After that's VTech, Wake, and Florida State. Their losses are Clemson, Duke, Virginia, and Louisville. So they've played well against mediocre teams and not as good against the bad teams. That should make this an interesting game as NC State's kind of in the middle, but I'm taking the Wolfpack. I'm taking Will Wade. I think they win, and I think they cover that spread against SMU. Next up, Pitt at Virginia, an 18th ranked Cavs in this one, 9 Eastern time on the ACC network. FanDuel favoring Virginia by 13.5, looking to get to 19-3 overall and an 8-2 start in conference play for this Virginia team here. Ryan Odom's been fantastic. It's been fun to see Virginia play a completely different style than the style they used to play under Tony Bennett. Meanwhile, Pitt, has not been a good year for them. 2-7 in conference play. I'm taking Virginia to win. I'm taking Virginia to cover this one as well. Folks, UConn's St. Louis and Miami, Ohio, just like Duke, are all looking to stay undefeated in their respective conferences. We're going to preview those and a few other games on Tuesday, all coming up in just a second. But first, folks, hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. And if I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And that's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you're looking for. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I have been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed's data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored jobs credit to help keep your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring. Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, folks, segment 3 here. We are closing out the show, continuing to give you Tuesday previews. We talked Big Monday. We talked about the Darryn Peterson show in the final 90 seconds of Kansas's win over Texas Tech. We talked about North Carolina nearly blowing a 32-point lead against Syracuse. We talked about some of the ACC games going on tonight. Now we're going to take a look at 7 other games on the docket for Tuesday, including 3 teams that are undefeated in their respective conferences. Will that be the case on Wednesday morning? We'll start with the number 3 UConn Huskies hosting Richard Pitino and the Xavier Musketeers. This game on 7 Eastern time on Peacock. FanDuel favoring UConn by 17.5. The Huskies have not lost since November 19th. That loss to Arizona. They have a 17-game win streak, third longest in college basketball. They already beat Xavier by 23 points back on New Year's Eve. Xavier has really not showed up against the best of the best in the Big East. And that's a problem when there's not that many good teams in the Big East. Xavier was swept by Creighton. They have a loss to UConn already. They have a loss to St. John's. They have a loss to Seton Hall. This Pitino team has just not been very good. You got to give Richard a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. A lot of success in the Mountain West prior to coming over here, but it has not been a great start for him at Xavier. I think Creighton. I think UConn's going to win this game. 17.5-point line feels like a lot, but they beat them at Xavier by 23 last time out. I think they're going to win this game at home by at least that many. So give me UConn to win and to cover here. Number 19, St. Louis, Josh Schertz's team at Davidson, 9 Eastern time on the CBS Sports Network. FanDuel favoring the Billikens by 9.5. They have won 15 straight. They're 21-1 overall, and their lone loss was on a neutral site to Stanford, and it was a weird, wonky loss. Kind of crazy that Stanford even won that game if it hadn't happened the way that it did. we would have a lot more conversations about St. Louis because they would be undefeated on the season, one of 3 undefeated teams left, and they would be really in the conversation. They're 19th right now. They'd probably be top 15 if they hadn't dropped that game to Stanford. Robbie Avila is the player that gets all of the attention. He's averaging 12.8 points per game, 4.5 boards, 4 assists, shooting 61% on twos, 47% from 3, and 79% from the free throw line. But here's the deal about this St. Louis team. They are so balanced offensively. They have seven players. Most teams don't even barely have 7 guys in their rotation at times. Kansas and Texas Tech, who just played on Monday night, are like almost dead last in bench production. They get nothing from the players coming off their bench. Meanwhile, this team has 7 guys averaging between 9.5 and 13 points per game. You do not know who's going to beat you on any given night is what makes this team so darn difficult. Davidson has been fine this year, but they're barely 500 in conference play. I'm taking St. Louis, even on the road. I'm taking them to win. I'm taking them to cover that 9.5 point spread. Number 23, Miami, Ohio. Let's try that again. Number 23, Miami, Ohio, on the road at Buffalo. The Redhawks, of course, one of the two remaining undefeated teams in college basketball. They're taking on Buffalo at 6:30 Eastern time on ESPN Plus, favored by 4.5 points. How long can they keep getting away with this? I'm thinking of the Jesse Pinkman meme from the Breaking Bad. Like, he can't keep getting away with this. And that's what it feels like with Miami, Ohio, because 2 of their last 4 games were won in overtime. One of them, mind you, was against this very same Buffalo team that they are now going to play on the road. One of those other games was against UMass, and it was a 2-point win. Now, their most recent game, they won by 24, but they were playing Northern Illinois. It was the worst team in the MAC by a considerable margin. So fine. They blew out a bad team. But their other 3 games, overtime, 2-point win. They have been this close to taking their first loss of the season. Now they're playing a Buffalo team that has not been all that good. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games, but they know they're capable of beating this team because they lost in overtime just a few weeks ago, and now they're hosting them at their home floor. It's a 4.5 point line, and I'm going to say that Miami, Ohio continues to ride the Lightning here. I'm picking them to win. I am not picking them to cover. I think this is going to be a 1-possession game again for the Redhawks, looking for another victory this season. All right, moving on to talk about some other games going on Tuesday that don't involve teams that are still undefeated in their conference. We got number 22, St. John's, Rick Pitino this time, going out to DePaul, 8 Eastern time on Peacock. FanDuel favoring the Johnnies by 9.5 points. St. John's on a 7-game winning streak. They're 9-1 in conference play. They weren't really ever fully in bubble territory, but their resume was not looking great after that Providence loss, but now they've been rolling as of late. You can't screw around here. You can't lose at DePaul. Road games against bad teams in conference play are traps for a reason, but I'm not too worried about St. John's here. Dylan Mitchell has been huge for them in the last 4 games, 14.5 points, over 10 rebounds per game. DePaul's offense just not good enough. KenPom has them 181st in adjusted offensive efficiency going up against St. John's 12th ranked defense. Give me the Johnnies to cover this one as well. I think it's a double-digit win for Pitino. Next, going over to the SEC, we got a fun one here. Ole Miss, Chris Beard, and the Runnin' Rebels on the road at Rick Barnes, and number 25, Tennessee, snuck back into the top 25 after a nice weekend. 7 Eastern time for this game on ESPN2, FanDuel favoring the Vols by 11.5. There will not be Felix Akpara. He missed their last game against Auburn, but it's already been reported by John Rothstein that he is not going to play in this game either, averaging about 7.6 boards, 1.5 blocks per game. A big loss for Tennessee in this game. They have won 3 games in a row. Again, the most recent one without him. They're 5-3 now in conference play. Big part of that is Nate Ament has been great. Amidst all of the conversation about DP and DeBansa and Boozer and Wilson and Flemings and Wagler and everybody else, Ament has been really good as of late. Last 5 games for him, he's averaging 22 points, 6.5 boards, 2 assists, 35% from 3. Meanwhile, Ole Miss, 3-game losing streak. They're down to 3-5 in conference play. I don't see them having the horses to beat Tennessee on the road. Give me the Vols to win and cover that 11.5 point line. Big Ten action. We got Indiana going all the way out to Los Angeles to take on Eric Musselman and the Trojans. This game's 10 Eastern time on Peacock. FanDuel favors USC by 1.5 points. The Hoosiers are hot, though. They got that 2 overtime win at UCLA on Saturday. Maybe some tired legs coming into this game, but that's also three wins in a row for them after also beating Purdue earlier in the week. Lamar Wilkerson has been money for Indiana, 23.5 points per game in this 3-game winning streak. Meanwhile, USC has had a lot of close games as well. No double overtime for them in the last 2 weeks at least, but their last 3 games have been determined by 3 or less points. They had a 2-point win at Wisconsin, 1-point loss at Iowa, and then a 3-point win over Rutgers, which is not great. But the big storyline for USC has been the return of freshman Elijah Arenas, who had missed the majority of the season after having some serious issues this summer. He had the car accident. Gilbert Arenas' son, top 10 recruit in this class, and he hasn't looked like the player he was expected to be. It's been 4 games. It's very understandable that he is still finding his footing. 7.5 points per game in those 4 games, despite playing a big amount of minutes. He started every single one of those games, shooting just 35% on 2s and 13% from 3. But I think he's going to have a breakout game. I'm not 100% sure it is this game. Indiana's a top 50 defensive team. They got a lot of length on the perimeter, but it's going to happen. And I think if it's going to happen at home. This is what I'm looking for in this game. I'm going to tell you right. I'm not taking USC. They're favored by 1.5. I'm taking Indiana to win and obviously cover as well. But I think this might be a game where Arenas starts to look like the guy that we know he's capable of being. Last game to talk about here in the Mountain West, Nevada going out to Boise to take on Leon Rice and the Broncos, 9 Eastern time on the Mountain West Network. FanDuel favoring Boise State by 5.5, despite the fact that Nevada already beat Boise. It was way back on December 20th, so it's been a long time. But Nevada 8-3 in conference play, already got a win over Boise State. Now they're taking them on at home. Look, I do think Boise State wins. They're at home. We've seen Leon Rice's team really kind of pick it up toward the end of the year. They had a 4-game winning streak before they got boat raced by Grand Canyon over the weekend on the road. They're back home. I think they win, but I'm going to say Nevada covers. I think this ends up being like a 1, maybe 2 possession game. But I do think that Boise State is going to end up securing a home win here over the Wolfpack. It's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Isaac will be back with you all on Wednesday's show. He'll have Thursday as well, and then it'll be he and I together on Friday, getting you ready for another fantastic weekend of college basketball action, although not as much action on Sunday as we had last week because of the Super Bowl. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the McBruins. And until next time, peace out.